The Samsung Galaxy S27 Ultra is already shaping up to be one of the most talked about flagship phones of 2027. And a fresh leak may have just confirmed the biggest change yet. A completely redesigned rear camera setup that could signal a new direction for Samsung's Ultra lineup. If you've been waiting for Samsung to make a meaningful hardware move instead of minor spec bumps, this might be the leak to watch. Today, we're breaking down the leaked Galaxy S27 Ultra camera configuration, what it could mean for photo and video quality, how the design may change, and what else we're hearing ahead of the expected January 2027 launch. As always, quick reminder, these are leaks and early reports, so consider everything rumored until Samsung makes it official. Now let's get into it. First, the headline upgrade. According to the latest leak, Samsung may be moving away from its familiar 4-camera rear layout and switching the Galaxy S27 Ultra to a 3-camera system. And no, this doesn't necessarily mean fewer features. In fact, it could mean the opposite. A cleaner setup with higher-end sensors doing more of the work. For years, Samsung's Ultra phones have leaned into more lenses, more options. But the leak suggests Samsung is now prioritizing a more premium trio of cameras built around a next-gen 200-megapixel main sensor, paired with two 50-megapixel supporting lenses that cover ultrawide and telephoto, because the rumored specs are the real story. Starting with the main camera, the Galaxy S27 Ultra is rumored to feature a brand new 200MP primary sensor. Samsung has used 200MP sensors before, but this leak suggests this is not just a repitus, an updated sensor designed to deliver better detail, improved dynamic range, and cleaner low-light performance. In real-world terms, that could mean sharper photos with less overprocessing, more natural textures, and better results when you crop into shots, especially in daylight. And if Samsung improves the way it bins, pixels, and handles HD, it could also mean less motion blur in tricky scenes like indoor photos, kids, pets, concerts, and night street photography. Next, the ultra-wide camera. The leak points to a 50MP ultra-wide lens with autofocus. And if you've ever used an ultra-wide camera on a phone, you know why autofocus is a big deal. Autofocus on ultra-wide isn't just about landscapes, it's what unlocks better close-up detail and macro-style shots without needing a separate macro camera, so instead of juggling extra camera modes and gimmicky lenses, the S27 Ultra could deliver a simpler, higher-quality camera experience. One ultra-wide lens that can do wide shots, group photos, architecture, and close focusing while still maintaining strong image detail. Now the telephoto camera, the Galaxy S27 Ultra, is rumored to include a 50MP telephoto lens with 5x optical zoom. That's a sweet spot for real zoom photography portraits, street shots, travel photos, stage performances, and anything where you want reach without the digital mush that usually comes from cropping. And with a 50MP sensor behind it, Samsung could potentially deliver cleaner zoom photos with better stabilization and more usable detail, even beyond 5x through hybrid zoom processing. So here's what's interesting. If this leak is accurate, Samsung is betting that 3 excellent cameras can outperform for mixed-use cameras, especially if the processing and sensor quality are upgraded across the board. But the rear cameras aren't the only part getting attention. The front camera is also rumored to change in a noticeable way. Leaks suggest Samsung may adopt a new 16MP square sensor for the selfie camera, replacing the current design approach. The big promise here is better selfies with sharper detail and improved low-light performance, especially in indoor lighting, where many front cameras still struggle. If Samsung also improves the front camera HDR and skin tone processing, this could be one of those upgrades you feel everyday video calls, Instagram stories, TikTok recording, and casual selfies that actually look clean without needing a filter. Now, let's talk about what this camera shift could mean for the phone's design. A 3-camera layout could bring a more streamlined camera island or even a cleaner floating lens look, depending on how Samsung arranges the modules. And that matters because the Ultra phones have gotten increasingly camera-heavy in recent generations. Both visually and physically, reports say Samsung is exploring multiple prototypes, with a big focus on optimizing the rear camera layout. That suggests Samsung is not just swapping sensors, they're experimenting with how the phone looks, feels in the hand, and how the camera bump sits on a table. The goal seems to be balance, keep the premium Ultra identity, but make the camera hardware feel more intentional, less cluttered, and more integrated into the overall body. And if you're wondering whether Samsung will completely change the S27 Ultras, look, early signs point to refinement rather than a total redesign. The Galaxy S27 Ultra will likely carry forward the sleek, minimalist style from the Galaxy S26 Ultra, but with small changes that make it feel newer. Camera layout, frame tweaks, and subtle improvements to the overall finish. We should also expect CAD-based renders and more reliable design leaks. Closer to launch, usually, when case makers and accessory partners start preparing for production, that's when the real design story typically becomes clear. Now, let's shift to performance. Because camera upgrades are only half the flagship equation, the Galaxy S27 Ultra is rumored to keep a 5,000 mAh battery. Samsung may stick with proven battery capacity rather than chasing bigger numbers. And honestly, that's not a bad thing if Samsung improves efficiency elsewhere. Battery life depends on three things more than anything: the display efficiency, the chipset efficiency, and modem optimization. So even with the same 5,000 mAh capacity, the S27 Ultra could still see better real-world endurance if Samsung tightens up power draw and thermal performance. As for the processor, early leaks are still unclear. Depending on the region, Samsung's Ultra phones often split between Snapdragon and At this stage, it's too soon to say exactly what chip powers the S27 Ultra globally, but what matters is Samsung's apparent approach: incremental upgrades that improve consistency and stability instead of chasing flashy benchmarks. That might not sound exciting on paper, but for Ultra buyers, it's often what matters most: less overheating, better sustained performance for camera recording, more stable gaming frame rates, and fewer performance drops when you're multitasking. In other words, a phone that feels fast all the time, not just during a speed test. And that brings us to Samsung's bigger strategy with the Galaxy S27 Ultra. Based on what's leaked so far, the Galaxy S27 Ultra looks like a flagship built around refinement, not revolution. Instead of reinventing the phone, Samsung may be perfecting the parts people actually use: a more focused, higher-end camera trio, a cleaner rear design, a boosted selfie camera, and steady improvements to battery reliability and day-to-day performance. And this positioning matters, because it also changes the buying decision. If the differences between the Galaxy S26 Ultra and the Galaxy S27 Ultra end up being mostly camera-focused and design-focused, then the S26 Ultra could remain a strong value pick, especially if pricing drops after the new model launches. But if Samsung's new 200MP main sensor is a real generational upgrade, and the three-camera system produces more consistent results across wide, main, and zoom, then the S27 Ultra could become the Ultra to get, especially for creators, travelers, and anyone who treats their phone like their primary camera. Now, here's what to watch for next as we get closer to January 2027. Number 1. More detailed camera leaks, specifically sensor size, aperture values, and whether Samsung changes its image processing pipeline. Hardware is important, but Samsung's processing can make or break the final result, especially for skin tones, nighttime photos, and video stabilization. Number 2. Confirmation of the three-camera rear layout. This is the massive hardware change everyone's talking about, and once reliable CAD renders appear, we'll know if Samsung truly dropped the fourth rear camera or if there's another module being handled differently. Samsung's Ultra line competes heavily on video features, and a new camera setup usually comes with improvements like better 8000 performance, improved HDR video, stronger stabilization, and cleaner low-light footage. If the S27 Ultra is meant to redefine expectations, video is where Samsung will want to prove it. And number 4, pricing and storage tiers. Flagships are getting more expensive. And if Samsung positions the S27 Ultra as a camera-first premium device, pricing could reflect that. The real question is whether Samsung delivers enough practical upgrades to justify the jump. So, let's wrap it up clearly. If the leaks are accurate, the Samsung Galaxy S27 Ultra will launch in January 2027 with one of its most important changes in years. A new 3-camera rear system built around a rumored 200MP main sensor, a 50MP autofocus ultrawide, and a 50MP 5x optical zoom telephoto, plus an upgraded 16MP selfie camera that may improve sharpness and low-light performance. This isn't just a spec refresh. It's a shift in how Samsung builds an Ultra phone. Fewer lenses, higher quality hardware, and a cleaner design approach that aims to make the camera experience simpler, stronger, and more consistent. If you want, I can also create a full Galaxy S27 Ultra versus S26 Ultra upgrade guide script the moment more specs, leaked camera samples, chipset details, and real design renders will make that comparison much more accurate.